There's George Oliver.
And we're back.
And we are back here. We've got Dr. Josh Gelber here. Is it okay if I said Josh, not Joshua?
Yes.
Dr. Josh.
I typically go by Dr. Josh. That's
great.
the most common.
Dr. Josh.
So we're talking about fear today. That was the topic you wanted to bring up. And
Correct.
Do you want to sort of give us an introduction as to what aspect of it you're talking about here?
Absolutely. It came up this week, and it's a point of frustration in me that I speak to people. I do a lot of community health tips and health talks, just 5 minutes at a time, really quickly, informing and inspiring the community towards a natural health method. And I spoke to the one gentleman and said, I have a question for you. He said, I was picking up my kid and I was lifting him and I felt this tension and I was getting tingling in my arm and I was feeling in my elbow, and he's pointing to these places for me. And I've spoken to him a number of times before. I said, I've offered to check his spine, check his nervous system and see, let's see what's going on, whether I can help or not, let's find out. And he finally admitted to me, the reason, whether it was not coming to see me or checking with his family doctor, was that, say, what if it's a heart attack? And what if, that left arm goes limp symptom was a heart attack? He didn't want to know that it was something that bad. And after he basically mentioned and described the symptoms, that it was certain areas and there was nothing up in the chest, I gave him a quick reassurance. It's not a heart attack, and if this happened 2 weeks ago and you're here standing comfortable, pretty sure it didn't pass by in that way. So he was afraid to find out an unsolvable or a traumatic diagnosis.
Right.
And that happens quite a bit. I speak to people and they don't always admit it, but they get a lot of diagnoses. And people come in, I have a herniated disc, I have an arthritic condition, I have irritable bowel syndrome, and I have to live with it. And there's no solution for it. And I've been prescribed medication or, the head scratch or the shoulder shrug. So it's not okay by me that people live in that fear of, well, if I go to the doctor, they're just going to tell me I'm, dying or something is really bad, and it prevents them from getting care or finding a solution.
Okay, maybe just before we go a little bit further,
Sure.
for the benefit of the listeners, can you help them to understand where exactly fear comes from? We're beginning to see how it manifests within the
Right.
body. Perhaps there are people out there who are trying to understand, well, how does fear manifest? To varying degrees, we are all experiencing that. That is
Totally.
what keeps us in separation. But for certain people who are just struggling to say, okay, how are you perceiving fear as manifesting? Where could this fear come from?
I think like anything, it comes from time and repetition or experience. And the more I hear of negative experiences, it's built up. And the more you go to see someone or interact with people and you have the same response, the same reaction, it's inundation. They're inundated with, well, there's no solution, there's no answer. And so I think fear builds from past experience. And as we were just talking earlier, it becomes a cyclical addiction. It can become a vicious cycle of you hear one thing and it repeats and repeats. And it can build up as an internal process. I don't know if that's what you were...
Sure. I could talk about fear from the spiritual perspective that I approach it. I think the listeners would appreciate hearing it from you, being a more certified, registered professional, as to what the nature of fear is, as far as a chemical reaction within the body.
That's a good question. I can't say I have the most accurate answer for that process and the chemical interaction with neuropeptides, neurotransmitters, and just basically a chemical process inside the body that comes from repetition, that comes from an innate brain interaction with other processes. You described it well just before we were on the air.
Which I'll cover in a moment.
Perfect. And inside me, it comes from previous experience.
Well, plus we don't want to die, right? We don't want to get bad news about our health.
Absolutely.
And
that's a simple message.
And I think people react in different ways. Some people are going to want to get that diagnosis or that news, whatever it is, good or bad, and then deal with it. Other people don't want to hear it. And I don't know what that means. I think even myself, I think I've gone through different stages where there was a time when I was probably a little more fearful about it, whereas today I just give me the news and then I'll try to deal with it, right? So people, kind of evolve too, but nobody wants that bad news.
No, and there's a sense of perfection that we hope and we feel and we pray that our bodies are in perfect working order. And I'm not going to lie, I've had moments, internal thought process, well, what if that little thing I'm feeling, what if something's wrong? I don't feel like I want to know the answer either. But again, innately, I know through chiropractic, number one, and through just a more relaxed state of mind, there is a solution out there, or I can listen to my body better. But that's, I think, the biggest point. People don't want to know that they're dying, that there's something wrong that they can't fix. What good is it going to do them?
Yeah.
And to know you have, some people want to know they have arthritis. They can, find a solution, do exercise, do yoga, chiropractic care, naturopathy, whatever may work, and a lot of things do work. And those, I don't know if I have arthritis. What am I going to do about it? I'm going to suffer the same.
Well, you know what's interesting though? The one thing that I think is kind of refreshing about what you're bringing here to the table is that because a lot of times people will encounter a health practitioner, whether it's their doctor or whoever it happens to be, and they've kind of got, well, sorry, this is the diagnosis and there's nothing we can do about it, right? According to traditional, whatever that doctor's particular framework is.
Correct.
Right? So I think it's refreshing to have a healthcare practitioner that says, you know what, this is what it looks like it is, but there's a lot of alternatives that maybe we should consider, as opposed to closing the mindset down and saying there's no help here. At least being open to the idea that maybe there are some approaches.
Definitely.
That's a good segue, actually.